This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
CBD is a game changer sweeping the nation. This hemp extract is the natural way to elevate your mood, eliminate aches and pains, reduce anxiety, and keep you sleeping all night long. It can even cut your workout recovery time in half. Get in the game today with 20% off all orders of CBD and lavender products from Lavender Lane, a lavender farm located right here in Milan, Michigan. Just go to lavenderlanemi.com today and enter coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order. Guys, look, these amazing products are infused with calming lavender to maximize their effectiveness, meaning your CBD items only take minutes to take effect, which is way quicker than those pills you were about to swallow. On top of it, they are perfect for men and women. Lavender Lane has lab-tested CBD creams, tinctures, and roll-ons that are perfect for any situation, even if you're on the go. Put your health back in your hands by heading over to lavenderlanemi.com and entering coupon code Detroit for 20% off your entire order of CBD and lavender products. What do you have to lose? Your satisfaction is guaranteed or your money back. So if you need lavender gifts for your loved ones or just looking for the natural way to ease your discomfort with CBD, go to lavenderlanemi.com and use coupon code Detroit to unlock these miraculous benefits of CBD and lavender. That's lavenderlanemi.com. And remember, use coupon code DETROIT for 20% off your CBD and lavender products from Michigan's own Lavender Lane.
Welcome, everybody, to the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. This is episode 103. We've done 103 of these bad boys, not counting everything else we did on the DocNJock show that you can check out every single Thursday right here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Straczynski, and today we're going to be discussing all kinds of stuff. It was another great week of wrestling. We do have an update on Samoa Joe and where he's at. Apparently, rappers are getting in the game of wrestling. We're going to talk about that as well. And we are going to talk about some injuries that may have befallen some wrestlers that took place in Hell in the Cell. Of course, we're going to review AEW. We're going to take a peek at NXT. We're also going to discuss Raw. But we're going to start the show off discussing Smackdown, reviewing it, previewing it, and breaking down what the hell took place at Hell in the Cell. And doing it with me, as always, he's the one. He's the only. He is my guy. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Oh, this week of wrestling was jam-packed full of storylines. I mean, from one organization making major mistakes to the other making major moves forward. So much to get into. Where are we starting? We start with Hell in a Cell?
Yeah, let's start with Hell in the Cell. So I'm going to say interesting pay-per-view. I felt like WWE had some things going on, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, guys, I'm just going to take a dump on your chest.
Exactly. It was definitely enjoyable. I think, arguably, that first hour of Hell in a Cell was one of the finest booked shows ever. I thought the first hour was great. Great wrestling, great storyline, great psychology, and as the night went on, it just felt like the show didn't keep up, and then, obviously, the show was ruined by whatever that decision was in the main event. Everybody in the world hated it. Nobody liked the ending. It didn't make sense because at the core, you can't have a DQ in a Hell in a Cell match. It's not possible. It's not realistic. And, because we've all watched wrestling, we've all seen Triple H with a sledgehammer. A guy fell through the cage. A guy got thrown off of the cage. Far worse shit happened than what happened in that match, and they ended it. So
the name of the pay-per-view, the name of the match itself is Hell in a Cell. Okay? So that means the worst, the most ungodly things that you can think of. Anything that is absolutely awful and horrible in this world should take place in this match. A dude getting hit with a sledgehammer is like the least of the most awful things you can think of. I mean, if you go back, if you ever get a chance I don't know if you're a fan of ICP or not, but I used to be down with the clown back in the day. All right, let's not talk about this too loudly. But anyways, I've got a VHS tape. I don't know if you have a VCR or not, but I have a VHS tape of ICP wrestling. Basically, it's barbed wire matches. It's blood everywhere. There are thumbtacks sticking out of dudes' asses. There are fluorescent light bulbs that get used as batons. It's absolutely insane. It's nuts. And it is more violent than what took place on Sunday. And there are no DQs in that. This makes no sense to me. Hell in a Cell, like you said, the first hour I think was great. The Sasha Banks Becky Lynch match, incredible. It was absolutely awesome. All right. Then you get to the main event, and Seth Rollins and Bray Wyatt are for the most part putting on a clinic, right? Bray Wyatt takes 12 curb stomps, and the guy just won't stay down. You can't kill him. So while this match is going on, his legend is just growing and growing and growing.
And all the kickouts at one were awesome too.
Right. Next thing you know, Seth goes and gets a sledgehammer, hits him, and he gets DQ'd. And you're just like, wait, what? What just happened? You essentially took a character who was the hottest thing you had going in WWE, and you ruined him. And you ruined him to keep the belt on a guy who the crowd has been over. They're just done with him. They've been absolutely over this guy for almost 2 months.
Did you see the aftermath when Seth Rollins is heading to the back? Did you see that video?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so there's a video.
What happened?
Okay, so there's a video online after Hell in a Cell, after they're off the air. There's a bunch of referees surrounding Seth Rollins, and he's going to, back through the curtain. And there's a fan that has a sign, and it's bright and big, and Seth is staring right at it. And the sign says, "Seth Rollins is not cool." and Seth looks so down and dejected, and the guy's like egging him on and pointing to the sign, and it's just, you got to check it out.
Here's the thing. It's not really Seth's fault, though.
All right.
It's just not. He is overexposed.
Yeah.
And this is something I think AEW is doing that is incredible. We'll talk about it when we get to our AEW review later on in the show. But I think WWE could learn a little bit from what AEW is doing with some of the wrestlers. And I think a guy like Seth Rollins falls victim to what WWE has done with him because he's so overexposed. He's crammed down everybody's throat, and everybody's just kind of done with him. They're just kind of tired of it. They want something new. They want something fresh. And this match right here would have gave you it. It would have gave you the Fiend with the belt. And this would have set up, you could have went a million different ways with this, honestly, because we've got the draft right around the corner. There are so many different interactions this guy has had, either through the Firefly Funhouse or just on Twitter, that sets up for so many different interesting matches. And WWE basically shoots themselves in the foot and just ruins which was setting up to be a very good show for the fans. This ruined the entire pay-per-view. The pay-per-view going into the main event was probably a solid 7, maybe an 8. If you want to be really generous. And now, honestly, only thing anybody wants to talk about is what happens in the main event. And they want to give it like a 5.
Exactly. And especially when you started the pay-per-view with such an amazing Hell in a Cell match between Sasha and Becky Lynch. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It was awesome. It was a good start to the show, like we all said. But at the end of the day, this Hell in a Cell will be marred forever by the mistake in booking, by the mistake and did you? I was literally floored by the fan reaction. They were chanting.
Oh, they were so pissed.
They were chanting AEW. They were chanting restart the match. They literally could have probably, someone should have said, you know what? Let's just restart it. Let's just do it. Let's just book it on the fly. Let's just have it happen. Sometimes in creative, you got to recognize, hey, I just can't believe that Vince McMahon would shift everything and make it so that the fans of his business don't get the payoff, especially when it's the right time. This is not, just the Fiend. This is the continuation of Bray Wyatt, all the times he's been in big matches. People are ready for the payoff, and you didn't give him the payoff. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's never a good night when canceled WWE Network is trending on Twitter. It's never a good night. Never good times when the next night on Raw, you don't even mention that the match happened until 2.5 hours into the show.
they stayed so far away from it. It was absolutely banana boats. It was nuts, man.
Yeah.
They just did not want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, and rightfully so.
I have no problem giving the pay-per-view an F.
No, hey, dude, I get it. The match was decent up until the finish, and the finish makes no sense. On top of that, you don't ever really want a DQ. You never want a DQ, and then you get an inexplicable disqualification in a match where basically anything goes. That's the one rule about Hell in a Cell. Anything goes. Like you said, Mick Foley was chokeslammed through the Hell in the Cell and went all the way down to the mat and dislocated a hip. Busted out a bunch of his teeth, bit his tongue, was just a mess. And yet that match continued. Yet you want to disqualify Seth Rollins for using a sledgehammer. Makes no sense. Let's go to calling the card. And calling the card, this was very close. There weren't a lot of matches. And for the most part, we were 1-1 with each other. The only difference in the thing that broke the tie was the Daniel Bryan Roman Reigns match. I picked Eric Rowan and Luke Harper. You picked Daniel Bryan Roman Reigns. In the end, Daniel Bryan Roman Reigns gets the win. So you take the whole point. You now have a small lead, very, very small lead, 12.5 to 12 over me in calling the card. This has really shaped up to be a hotly contested race because
Back
at one
forth,
point,
baby.
At one point, I had a 6 or 7 point lead on you, and now it is neck and neck. It's absolutely crazy.
So you're
All right, let's transition
wait. You're the Charlotte Flair of the game. You know, get the belt, give it right back.
Give it back, yeah.
Give it right back. So I got the lead, baby. I'm taking it over. And this one basically was, again, it came down to I picked the faces to go over, and potentially speaking, they messed that up too. I think the heels probably should have went over. You got these characters that like Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns don't need to get over anymore. You could have given the rub to Rowan and Harper. Did they do it? No.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily understand it myself.
Makes no sense. But some wrestlers on different organizations pointed it out in their promos.
Yeah, that's true. We'll talk about that. Let's transition to SmackDown here. So historic SmackDown on Fox
impressive
on Friday
set.
night.
Yes, an impressive set for a show for the ages.
Yeah, I think WWE knocked this out of the park. I thought this was a very good SmackDown. It was very interesting. You have Becky Lynch and you have The Rock, and they have a fantastic segment. Anytime you can put the man with anybody of the caliber of The Rock or even Stone Cold, you know it's going to be awesome. This, honestly, for me, was my moment of the night. I love this moment. I thought this was absolutely great. Not only is Becky Lynch my girlfriend, but The Rock is the freaking man. So anytime you get my girlfriend and you get the man together, you know it's going to be awesome and epic. And I thought this was a great way to start what was a historic SmackDown.
Yeah, and what an interesting person to be in the ring with the man and The Rock. King Corbin, what respect was he shown for, Vince to choose him? And he was actually perfect. Great way to start the show. Definitely having the man get some rub off of The Rock was perfect. Her delivering the line was awesome. And King Corbin, definitely with the testicles line, was hilarious. I laughed. I thought the first segment was great. The crowd was into it. LA crowd. The set looked amazing. It did have a WrestleMania feel. I loved SmackDown. It was great.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really good. Shane McMahon, I think this is the right move. Shane McMahon essentially gets fired by Kevin Owens, who beat him in a ladder match. Look, anything to write Shane off TV right now is needed. Shane is another person who is crippled by WWE and their creative. He's overexposed. I think this helps Kevin Owens. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens on SmackDown tonight. This is going to be extremely interesting, but I think this is the right move. You get Shane off TV, you let Kevin Owens go wherever Kevin Owens is going to go. I believe he's going to end up at NXT. We'll kind of see what happens there. But right move, wrong move.
100% right move. I mean, Kevin Owens and Shane McMahon have feuded for 2 years. There was a Hell in a Cell with those two that was featured 2 years ago. So to end it, finally, yes, move on. Kevin Owens deserves a better storyline. He needs to be at the top of the card. He needs to be exposed now. He needs to be a guy that, hey, give him the ball. He can handle it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Kevin Owens is a guy who you need to start to build up, do something with him because he is epic. He is great. He's a very good wrestler, and most of his matches in the ring are solid to awesome. Big name that shows up on SmackDown, Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury and Braun Strowman have a little bit of an exchange, a little bit of a dust up, and it looks like we're going to talk about this in the news and notes. It looks like we're going to get a match between Tyson Fury and Braun Strowman. Does this excite you at all right now?
Not really, because Tyson Fury's not that good. No, he's not that good at all.
No, doesn't excite me either. It's WWE going after a name here. Let's move on to I think a spot in the show that was a total low for the fans. I think this tells you what WWE thinks of this specific wrestler in comparison to this other wrestler. And I guess long term, I kind of understand it. But right now in the short term, after this guy brought your title on television every single week, fought for your title every single week, and was a really good champion who got himself over. He got himself over. And he stayed over. We thought that Kofi was going to end up fizzling out, I think, after his second or his third title defense. And yet, I think right now, if he had his belt, he would still be over. I think WWE did Kofi Kingston dirty by beating him in roughly 7 seconds. Now Brock Lesnar has a title that we will probably never see because he'll hold it captive. And he is setting up for what looks like it could be an interesting match, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I want to stay with Kofi right now. Do you think WWE either A, lost faith in Kofi, or B, just didn't really care about him because they see more money with Brock and just didn't necessarily give two craps on how they basically treated him when they were taking the belt away from him?
They just wanted to establish Brock Lesnar as a dominant beast at the expense of Kofi Kingston. It was wrong, but that's what they chose to do. But those that will defend it will say, look, Kofi had a 6-month reign. He was going to lose it anyway. So at the end of the day, he had the reign. He will always be known as, a WWE champion. He had a 6-month reign. It was filled with wins over great wrestlers.
It was solid, man. It was
a
very,
good run.
Very good.
So while the ending sucked, I do think that this is the way in which WWE, builds sympathy for their characters. Is it the best way? No. I think great wrestling matches build, your characters. But when you want to establish Brock Lesnar, what better way to do it? And that's the formula. That's what Goldberg does. That's what Brock Lesnar does. Do we agree with it? Not really, but that's what happened.
Are you excited to see Cain Velasquez take on Brock Lesnar? This is basically a UFC fight that I think everybody has wanted for a while, and now you're going to get it in a WWE ring.
I don't think Cain can wrestle. I mean, his takedown was good, but the punches weren't.
You want to hear a little tidbit? Apparently, Vince isn't real happy with Cain because he looks a little bit out of shape.
Oh.
So this is going to be interesting to see kind of what happens here. Wrestlers have shown up a little bit out of shape, and essentially Vince puts them on a training regimen, and you better follow it, otherwise you're not getting paid, and you're going to get taken out of your match.
Hey-o.
And when you get taken out of your match, guess what? That's no dollars for you, and all these guys want that money. So overall, I thought SmackDown was a enjoyable show. I thought it was pleasant. I thought it had a lot of pomp and circumstance. I questioned some of the booking in this show, and I'm not excited for some of the big things that WWE is now pushing. So maybe they can win me over as SmackDown rolls along here, but right now I'm not excited for Tyson Fury, Braun Strowman, not excited for Cain Velasquez versus Brock Lesnar. What are your thoughts on SmackDown?
Overall, a great way to introduce the Fox audience that paid attention, almost 4 million people. It delivered everything that you would want, pomp, circumstance, celebrity. It was one of the best shows of the year. I enjoyed it. I thought they put everything into it, and it showed. It was reflected in what we saw for those 2 hours.
Yep. So tonight is going to be a little bit different. We have our WWE draft And this is generally it's a really interesting time of year. Usually Raw gets the extra picks because it's 3 hours long instead of 2 hours. Also, Raw generally gets the majority of the talent. And what you're left with on SmackDown is kind of a skeleton crew, not really a who's who, but it's kind of a skeleton crew. This year, I think it's going to be a little bit different because of all the money that Fox has invested in SmackDown. And I think WWE is going to really, really hype up SmackDown and make it the preeminent brand in this draft, helps to get that started. Who do you think should be on SmackDown, and who would you like to see on Monday Night Raw?
This is tough. I think probably Raw should have the likes of Dolph Ziggler, the likes of Bobby Roode, the likes of Apollo Crews, the likes of EC3, those that are on the main roster but need some more.
EC3 needs to go back to NXT.
He needs those that need TV time. And SmackDown should just be all the A-listers. It should be definitely slanted with SmackDown should have AJ Styles, Seth Rollins, Daniel Bryan, Roman Reigns, Asuka, all the top women. I just think that Raw should be the pseudo-developmental, not developmental from the standpoint of rookie to next level main roster, but from main roster to superstar. Raw should be the next place where, these guys learn how to cut a promo, learn how to wrestle 20-minute matches and get over. So Raw should have those kind of B- guys that are not featured as much but need the time. So definitely it should be slanted that way where, hey, we want to see the likes of an EC3. Put them on Raw. You got a lot more time there. And then put all the heavyweights on SmackDown because you only got 2 hours.
I think that a guy like The Fiend needs to be on Raw. AJ Styles and the OC can move to SmackDown. I would love to see Brock Lesnar on Raw. I don't really want him on SmackDown, but he's going to be on SmackDown. At some point, I'd like to move Finn Balor into the OC. I think somebody like Sasha Banks should be on SmackDown. Becky Lynch can pretty much go anywhere Becky Lynch wants, but I think right now she'll be on Raw. I think Charlotte stays on SmackDown. I think somebody like Roman Reigns could really benefit moving to Raw and again, being the head honcho on that program. I would love to see what they do with Kevin Owens. Again, we discussed Kevin Owens in the past, and I believe he's probably going to end up on NXT, but I wouldn't be upset if he ended up on SmackDown and he was a good guy. I think it'd be great. I think Bayley needs to stay with Sasha, and they kind of need to continue this tag team. And I think the New Day is a team that could probably make the transition to Raw and really help strengthen that tag team. What do you think about Raw, since we brought up Raw?
Raw was a throwaway. I mean, they just said, forget it. We're not going to have anything great. It was.
I'm glad you say that, because when
garbage.
I was watching Raw, I was like, I don't necessarily know what to make of this show. I was a little bit confused, and I was like, I don't know if I like this. I was left scratching my head more than anything as the show kind of rolled along.
Yeah, 100%. It was a show that was just like, what is going on here? It's like the crowd wasn't into it. They weren't really talking about Hell in a Cell all that much. I thought the best part was when Asuka sprayed Becky with the Muda Mist. That was the best part. The rest of it was just something where you said, others have said it, and people just were like, this is brutal. I tuned out. I couldn't make it past an hour and a half. I was out.
Yeah.
See you later.
I did not enjoy Raw. Like you said, I think the best part was the Bukkake Warriors versus Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair. I don't know what to make of this Braun Strowman, Tyson Fury angle that they got going on. I'm not into Tyson Fury. I don't really care who he is. I don't know. Again, like you said, I thought Raw was a throwaway. I think Raw was was basically crippled because we've got the draft coming up. So WWE doesn't want to really get any storylines started. They don't really want to go in any direction because they want the wrestlers to have that capability to be able to move around. Normally, this is a SmackDown show that kind of gets the shaft here, but Raw got it this week because of everything that's getting invested in the SmackDown. Let's transition over to NXT. So a couple big things happened on NXT. Lio Rush is your new NXT Cruiserweight Champion. Do you like this? Good move? Bad move? Were you surprised to see Lio Rush even back in the mix?
No, it's great. He's a character. He deserves to be there.
Yeah, I think it's good too. Look, Leo Rush, very good in the ring, and the fact that he's the cruiserweight champ, I think that's awesome for him. Gets a little bit of run on his own. He's not with Bobby Lashley. The guy can cut a promo. He's a high flyer. I think it works out perfect. I think the biggest news coming out of NXT though is Tommaso Ciampa is back, and he is dead set on getting Adam Cole's belt. Tommaso Ciampa is an absolute savage. So pretty much anything he does is great. And the fact that he gets to go and challenge Adam Cole, and this will probably be at NXT's next big pay-per-view where you'll get to see this match, I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be sweet. What do you think? Who should go over?
I would love to see Adam Cole go over. I think Adam Cole going over would be outstanding. Just because Tommaso Ciampa is great. But Adam Cole doing something devious and dirty to get the win, you can kind of sell that a little bit. It adds to the flavor of the group with Adam Cole and Roderick Strong and Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. So I think it's great. Tommaso Ciampa, look, there is a great story if he's chasing, right? So have Adam Cole beat him the first time. Tommaso Ciampa can come back, beat him on an NXT, and they can set it up for another pay-per-view. It's awesome storytelling, and you kind of get to stretch it a little bit. But I think Adam Cole should go over the first time.
Okay, I think so too. I think that Adam Cole is the guy. The group, the faction is over, so I agree with you 100%. But there's going to be some quality matches, that's for sure, no doubt.
Yeah, I think it's going to be solid. NXT's been very good lately, but I don't think it's been better than AEW. And on Wednesday night, we were introduced to Chris Jericho's Inner Circle heel stable. I thought this was outstanding. I thought this was incredible.
It was awesome.
Chris Jericho is the man. He's never rattled, cuts a great promo, has no qualms about swearing on television, which is awesome. He cut such a savage promo where he goes at WWE's creative. I thought that was fantastic. He introduces all the guys, gets all the guys over. That's even better. On top of all that, in between all of this, he has interactions with the crowd and basically puts them in their place. This was awesome. This makes you either love or hate the Inner Circle, and I think it's great. Chris Jericho is the man.
Yeah, it was raw, aggressive, and he definitely utilized the crowd. It goes to show you, given the right circumstance, those that have the talent deserve to perform unscripted promos. All credit for them. That was awesome.
Absolutely. We got to see our second Jon Moxley sighting. This time we get to see him in a ring on AEW television. Takes on Shawn Spears in what is a solid match. But I think what was most interesting was Kenny Omega coming down with barbed wire wrapped weapons. He held a broomstick with barbed wire around the actual bristles of the broom, and he threw a baseball bat with barbed wire wrapped around it to Jon Moxley. Do you want to see this match? Because you know this is getting set for their pay-per-view that is upcoming, and this is going to be one of those bloody, god-awful, I'm going to beat you to within an inch of your life type of matches. Are you intrigued by this? Are you interested? The crowd was all into this, and they wanted it. Did you want it as bad as they did?
Yeah, dude, it was great. I just thought that, in looking at how this all set up, man, in terms of the build, I just felt like I was like, wow, from week 1 to week 2, everything that I want got cleaned up. The wrestlers that were there were hyped up. The crowd was into it. All the matches that took place on AEW, I was into, and I was just like, wow, there's action. It makes sense. I'm hyped up. Jon Moxley is legit. I'm like, wow. Barbed wire, aggressiveness. I was happy all the way through. I didn't find really anything at all that I didn't like. I thought the commercials were even done properly. So all in all, I just can't find anything. I'm trying to find anything to critique. I was just like, yes. I got home after podcasting and work, and the entire show just had me like, yes, more aggressiveness. Even the name Inner Circle. But the one thing I guess, if I want to critique something, you can see now the main storyline. Okay, it involves the Inner Circle and Cody Rhodes. You now see obviously the feud now with Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega. But is there a feud at the lower level? Is it the tag team division the tournament that will get everybody hyped? I just feel like they need a super elevated mid-card now to kind of bring it full circle. Because I'm interested in the wrestling. I'm interested in the top end, but the mid-card is not clearly as established. Yeah, the Darby All-In match was good, but at the same time, you could kind of tell the difference. You can see now they're integrating the youth with the veterans, but just they need like maybe 5 more wrestlers that are a little bit more over. About 5 more in the mid-card to kind of round out a show, because I'm not into the women all that much, and the Darby All-In match was great, but there's no chance he's winning next week. So that's kind of an elevated situation, and I just can't wait to see Moxley and Kenny Omega.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think the one issue in their build of the roster is it tends to be a little bit weak in the mid-card. You don't have a ton of guys. Now, I think Darby Allin's interesting. I thought him coming down to the ring on a skateboard, lunging at Chris Jericho at the end of the show was great. But you're right. You see the main storyline right now. And this has me concerned because it is the members of the Inner Circle versus Kenny Omega versus the Young Bucks versus Cody. Basically, all the guys who put this wrestling organization together versus Chris Jericho and in his heel stable. That's what you're building towards here. At some point, you've got to spread this out a little bit, and you got to work other guys in and give them more meaningful matches. I don't know if that requires you making a middle tier belt, which I don't necessarily think we need right now because we're still getting the tag belts and we're still getting kind of introduced to everybody. But you have to find some guys who are going to connect with that audience and really resonate. Overall, I think AEW did a fantastic job this week. I really do. Much like you, I'm trying to find things that I can critique them on. And I think the one thing I kind of keep coming back to that I can kind of critique them on is the fact that it is the Inner Circle versus Cody Rhodes and his stable. And after 2 weeks, the way we go off the air is having chaotic endings. Now, the one difference is the first week, the heels were on top. This week, the faces were on top. So it's a nice little back and forth, and they're kind of building to something here. But I think at some point, you're going to have to change how you end shows. Because like you said last week, this is very much WCW Nitro, especially when the NWO was running wild. You always ended a show with the NWO being some kind of chaotic mess, whether it was versus Sting or it was Hogan and the Goons doing something to somebody. It was always nuts in the very, very center of the ring. And I think you, at some point, need to kind of break away from that and tell, I don't know, maybe add some depth to a story or do something just a little bit different to spice it up. Because 2 weeks in a row, you basically got the same ending, just with different guys coming out on top. Overall, though, I thought AEW was fantastic. Which show do you think gets the point this week?
I was asking, and I was like, okay, I took a poll in the Flick Check. I took a poll in the Flick Chat application. By and large, most people felt AEW was on point just due to the sheer aggressiveness of the promos, the matches. So the point goes to AEW. They win the week. They won the ratings again versus NXT. They had the better show, and it was on point. It was solid.
I love how we agree. I love how everybody in the Flick Chat app agrees as well. I was trying to find a reason to give the point to SmackDown. I was looking for a reason to give the point to NXT. Raw wasn't getting it because we discussed it was a throwaway show. All right. I was looking to give this point someplace, and I just kept coming back. AEW was way too good this week.
No doubt. They get the point.
Absolutely.
All right, cuz, hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes.
John Pollock of Post Wrestling reports that Sasha Banks and The Fiend Bray Wyatt suffered a few injuries during their Hell in a Cell pay-per-view event on Sunday night. At the time of this recording, we are unsure of what those injuries exactly are. As you've seen, if you were watching Raw, it didn't look like they really slowed Sasha Banks down too much. The Fiend was kept off air, so it's going to be interesting to see kind of what's uncovered here with his injury. Late Tuesday, WWE scheduled a press conference for the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas today on Friday, October 11th. Names listed to appear at the press conference are Brock Lesnar, Cain Velasquez, Braun Strowman, Tyson Fury, Paul Heyman, Rey Mysterio, and Triple H. The rumor is, this is the rumor, we are going to get Lesnar versus Vasquez and Fury versus Strowman. And all these matches have been set up for WWE Crown Jewel. That's going to take place on Thursday, October 31st from Saudi Arabia. Now, Master P, if you remember the Bada No Limit Soldier, Master P has purchased House of Glory, the Independent Wrestling Federation. He has also lobbed a warning at Vince McMahon saying, and we getting into wrestling, I'm just telling y'all, Vince McMahon, you in trouble, because I'm about to take over wrestling. I think Master P might need to pump his brakes just a bit.
All right.
On a recent episode of his podcast titled The King, Jerry the King Lawler said he does not like commentating. He said, end quote, they have a hard time believing it, but I don't really. I'm not crazy about being a commentator. It's not, at least to me, it's not fun. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of preparation. So the King, not a huge fan of doing commentary, but he does such a damn good job of it. Jeff Hardy was arrested on October 3rd. This flew underneath our radar last week. Jeff Hardy was arrested on October 3rd for DWI. During the arrest, Hardy had a bloody nose from a fight with his wife and admitted to taking 2 shots of vodka earlier in the night. He was later arrested. So Jeff Hardy, again, slipping off of the bandwagon. And if you remember, Jeff Hardy wrecked a vehicle probably about 2-3 months ago because of drinking and driving. So again, messing up and slowing down his return to the WWE. Hulk Hogan wants to challenge Vince McMahon at WrestleMania 36, saying, I talked to Vince and I said, I really don't know if I could live with myself with my last match was with TNA. If I can get fixed, I pray I have one more match. I told Vince, when I get through this back surgery, I'm going to get in the best shape of my life, and we're going to talk about me having one last retirement match. So Hulk Hogan wants to take on Vince at WrestleMania 36 after his back surgery. And speaking of guys dealing with some injuries, Samoa Joe is dealing with a broken thumb. Currently, he's not cleared to wrestle. He's been off TV since September 9th. However, a recent report that came out late yesterday has Joe ready to go. Basically, we're just waiting on WWE to give him the all clear. And I'm thinking that after the draft, we'll be good to go with Samoa Joe. And that's this week's wrestling news and notes.
Great podcast, sir. Always enjoy talking professional wrestling with the man of podcasting, the Jock, Adam Strozinski. Oh, man, good week of wrestling. It's on, baby. It's on. The competition is real. Fans are taking their sides. Some people also have started to take some photos of the AEW crowd and might not have been as full as people have looked. And I learned a new word this week, cuz you know what I learned about what kind of guy is out there? He's called Agenda Guy. And Agenda Guy took a bunch of photos of AEW's crowd and was like, what's all this hub about AEW? Half the crowd's empty. And people are like, oh, look at this. This is Agenda Guy. And he's like, how is this an agenda? It's just a fact. So I love it. I love it. Now when people reveal facts, they're called Agenda Guys.
So we do our shows. Are we Agenda Guys?
Hell no. No, we're not Agenda Guys. We present the facts. We present our biases. We present whatever we want here on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. If you agreed or disagree with anything that we've said, we mentioned it earlier, head on over and download the Flick Chat application. It's available anywhere your favorite apps are found, in your favorite app store. Download and search Flick Chat, and within moments, you're in the Detroit Sports headquarters. All you got to do is once you download, hit that little plus button, enter these 3 letters, all lowercase, DSP, and you're in the mix. You can chat wrestling, all things related to Detroit sports, and you can have fun and debate the shows. You can discuss. You can even listen to the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast right from the Flick Chat platform. It's a great spot. It's Detroit Sports' newest headquarters. All the guys, we have a good time talking wrestling during all the shows. And also support those who support us. Make sure you go and find and follow Dennis Farrell on Twitter at Dennis77Farrell. Listen to his Wrestling Perspective podcast with Eli Drake from the NWA. It's a great podcast, and it complements definitely the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. Look forward to talking to you next week, cuz.
Absolutely, brother. Good show.
Later, brother.
See you.